I'm running.
Hi, I'm Marcus Coward, and this is Wake Up New Bedford, and I'm here with Alicia and Maria. Thanks so much for being here, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Of
Thank you for having us
Of course.
here.
And so, for those who know you, but especially for those who don't, help us paint a picture of who you are, and you can start with how long have you been in New Bedford for?
Well, I've been in New Bedford for the past 22 years of my life. I came to the United States when I was 8 years old, so I've been a resident for New Bedford for the past 22 years.
And Maria, have you known anywhere else as home?
No. So I was born originally in Providence, but we came here to New Bedford at a young age. So I lived in New Bedford pretty much all my life. I went to school here. The first beginning of it, I was in the public schools, but then I went to a private school called Our Sister School, and then I went to Vogue. So I've always been in this area. I've never left home because I call New Bedford my home. Yeah.
And how was that school experience comparing public school to OSS? Was it really different?
So I honestly do have to say that OSS structured me in a way that maybe public schools wouldn't have. Yes, it was long hours. Yes, it was a lot of homework, but they prepared me to be where I am now. You know, we all have something that, like a root that we come from, and OSS was that root for me personally. Like education, I have not been the best when it comes to like school. It was never really my thing, but OSS really gave me that like fundamental, like the fundamental work that I needed to be able to continue to achieve what I'm able to achieve now.
Sure.
In public schools, I don't really remember much of it. I was young. I mean, it was kindergarten through fourth grade.
Sure.
So I don't really remember. I know that it was a little harder, but at OSS it was much different. A lot of more help. I was able to gain a lot of access to like different resources. So to me it was, because even going into Vogue, the help that I was getting at Vogue was not the same help I was getting at OSS. The teachers were very on top of me. If I wasn't doing much, my parents would get the phone call like, hey, Mari's not doing what she's supposed to. But at Vogue it was different. It was where it's like, they don't do it, they don't do it. You know?
It's up to you.
So it's up to me. And I get it. We're older, we're in high school, but sometimes students need that push to be able to thrive. And sometimes some schools, they miss that. You know, they say they're in high school, they should be able to. And it's like, not all the time, because some children need more help and more push than others.
We're all different.
And we learn different.
And so, Alicia, how did you find New Bedford out of any place, and why decide on New Bedford to make a family here?
I used to live in Providence, and my mom moved to New Bedford.
Okay.
And she found work here in the fish houses. And at the beginning, before I even moved to New Bedford, we all used to live in Providence, and she would travel back and forth, and then she finally decided to move to New Bedford, and then I moved with her. But by then, I was a very young mom. Sure. And so I already had 4 children, so I moved to New Bedford with 4 of my children.
And what was it like? What was it like starting a family here? Is it what you expected? What was the biggest challenge about raising a family here in New Bedford?
The first thing, when I moved to New Bedford 20-something years ago, we didn't have a lot of Hispanic food or stores. Okay. And so I'm from Guatemala. I was born in Guatemala, and we eat tortillas, and we eat our beans, and we eat many things. You know, we make our own tortillas. So it was challenging because we only had 2 stores, one in the south end and another one in the north end of New Bedford. So it was hard. Another thing that was hard too was transportation. Okay. I didn't drive then, and it was hard for me to go back and forth with my children. And so that was challenging. And even on the cold days, whenever my children would go to school, I would walk with them to school, and that's one of the reasons why I learned how to drive, because I just had my 5th child, and it was hard for him to bring him out back and forth, and that challenged me to learn how to drive and to take that fear out of me to drive.
Sure. And so Maria brings up OSS, and so you found OSS and Nativity. What made you want to send your children there?
Yes. So, like I said, I have 5 children. I have 4 boys, 1 girl.
Yeah.
And when my oldest son, was going to enter Roosevelt or Keith at that moment, I didn't know which one. I honestly didn't want it because when I was raising my children, I felt that it was very difficult for me to get services for my children. I didn't know it all. And the teachers were not as good to give me the resources that I needed it. I don't know. Maybe they thought that I needed it to know, or that I was going to know by just waking up and just knowing. But it doesn't work that way. So I was very afraid. And then also I was, I knew that I worked and I had a lot of things to do, and I needed help. So my son graduated or finished his 5th year in Parker School, and I was really praying. I was praying for something else, and so then we found Saturday Academy, and through Saturday Academy I met someone, and then he introduced me to Nativity Prep. And I've always had this in my brain since my kids were little, that they needed to do something with themselves, and I wasn't gonna just not believe in that, and I wasn't gonna stay in one place and not fight for that or not reach out for that. I didn't know how I was gonna get it, but I was gonna get it. So when they introduced me to Nativity, I saw that they had a lot of rules, that they had a lot of things, but that's what they needed it. That's what we needed it, and that structure was gonna help me to make productive people. Sure. And that's why you come here to this country with and even though I was young, but I knew it. You come to this country with dreams and with hopes, and you don't and you want to achieve that, and that's what I had in my brain, and I was gonna go get it, and I'm a go-getter, so I did it. And that's why I put my 2 boys in Nativity Prep, and then I heard about OSS through Nativity Prep, and then I brought Maria to OSS, and then I was a parent from both schools. It was challenging, a lot of work, but
sure,
I did it.
Maria, do you wish you had a sister? Is it hard to be the only girl?
No, I like being the only girl. I get a lot of my brothers are very protective, but in a very loving way. Yeah. I am the princess. I say I am the princess, because even my younger brother, he's 21, I'm 27, and he still treats me as like if I was his younger sister. Sure. He makes sure that I'm okay. He's like, do you need anything? And that's all my brothers, like, do you need anything? The other day, I left my keys in the car, and my older brother Eric, he's the one who came, and even though he didn't have what he needed, he stood there until someone came to help me. Sure. So it's like, I love being the only girl, and being brought up with 4 brothers was a little hard. Keeping up with them, and being as tough as them, and having to be a little tougher because I'm the only girl. But I always say I am blessed. I have 4 amazing brothers that I wouldn't trade for anybody, and wouldn't want nobody to be in there because that's my spot.
Sure. And so in middle school, I mean, we live right next to each other, like around the corner in the South End. In hindsight, well, first, do you still live there?
No, I moved.
Okay.
Yes, I moved.
And so did you like that area, or did it have challenges? Or if you could have picked somewhere else in New Bedford to live, where would you have picked? But what were your thoughts on that area?
So one of the things that I always thought that if I wouldn't keep my children busy, the streets would keep my children busy.
Yeah.
And I was living in the South End, and it wasn't the best area to live.
Yeah.
And I needed something that would keep my children occupied. Nativity did that because we had like schedules from 7 o'clock in the morning until 8:30.
All day.
Until 8:30 every day, and then Saturdays too. And it was long days, but it was. I'm very grateful because if it wasn't because of them, I don't know where I'd be. And and it was to keep my children out of the streets, to keep my children with also having like different role models than myself. Sure. Introduce them to other things that maybe I couldn't provide, but there's another world out there, and I know that, and I knew that. So then I wanted to introduce my children to that world, and Nativity Prep had a lot of role models, just like OSS, our sister school, had so many other role models, so then they can see that it's not just one place. And where's my best place in New Bedford? I think that all New Bedford. As much as maybe the South End was not the best when I was raising my children, it was still my home.
Yeah.
So it was still my best place. And I moved, and where I live now, it's still my best place. And when I first moved into New Bedford, I moved to the North End, and it was still beautiful there. So it doesn't matter where it was; it matters that it was home.
And so you mentioned when you got here that there were only 2 places that sold like Hispanic food, really. But were there still a lot of Hispanic and Spanish-speaking people in New Bedford, but we didn't have the stores? Or were there not that many people when you first came?
It wasn't that many people. As an immigrant, you move from place to place. So when I first arrived, I arrived to Los Angeles, and everyone in LA speaks Spanish. So
Okay.
I didn't have to speak English. And then I moved to Providence, and then it was like, I had to start using the English. But then when I moved here, I really, really needed to speak English. I did. And then, so that was a little bit hard just because I was so used to speaking Spanish and so used to my community. So then whenever I moved here, it was challenging because I didn't know a lot of people that speak Spanish, or a lot of restaurants. Not like now that so diverse, but back then it wasn't that way.
And so when you came, I know that now going into the North End, there's the Ave that is flooded with so many different restaurants. That wasn't even a thing.
No.
Really?
No, it was one Hispanic store there in the North End. That was it.
Okay.
That was it, and from Mexico, and that was it. That was the only Hispanic. I think it was the only one.
Sure.
And I think that they had another one that it was after that. There's another store that opened, but the first one was just that store in the North End.
Okay. Yeah, so a lot has changed. Okay.
A lot. What we see now is not what it was before. And that was one of the, some of the challenges that we had, when, we're a community that, was not known because we were not like such a large population like we are now. So it was challenging back then. So English was a must.
So Maria, was English or Spanish your first language?
English.
Yeah.
But I, still, even then, still kind of have a hard time speaking full English and full Spanish because I tend to do both.
Yeah.
I could be talking in English, but my head could be thinking in Spanish. Or it could be the opposite way. But English was my first language here in Bedford and growing up.
And did you, while going through school, feel like you're really the only Hispanic girl that you could relate to, or were there others?
A lot of the times that when, I can remember, I did feel like I was the only Hispanic, only because I'm very, I always say I'm a little bit too Hispanic for the Americans. I'm too American for the Hispanics.
Sure.
Because I'm very proud of where I come from. And yes, I was born in Providence, and I'm a USA, citizen, born here and everything. But I'm very proud of my roots.
Yeah.
Half Guatemalan and half Mexican, and I will always represent that
Yeah.
until the day I die. And I
Yeah.
will always
Nice.
fight for my people because you know what? I'm able to be all three. And there's nothing more beautiful than being able to share three cultures
Yeah.
and being able to stand up for all my culture. But I did find it, going back to your question, because I
Yeah.
got a little off topic.
No, go ahead. It's fine.
Going back, I did feel that because I like to talk Spanish. So it was hard when I knew that the group didn't talk Spanish.
Yeah.
Or like if I was surrounded, I also like to talk English. So it's like finding that balance was hard with other students.
And so not even just in the students, and you can start and then you can also give your perspective on, do you feel like schools reflect Hispanic history or culture in the curriculum and what it's teaching?
I don't think so. I know that when I would speak Spanish, a lot of them would be like, you have to speak English, and I get it. Sometimes students, we tend to get together and then we say stuff we shouldn't, but I feel like in any language, we all do that.
Sure.
So I think limiting me to my language was a big barrier because it's like taking away a part of who I am.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And and a lot of the times the schools would say that, like, nope, you need to speak English, and and I would always get mad because I'm like, I don't need to speak English. I could speak Spanish if I want to.
Yeah, yeah.
I was since little always like, nope, I'm gonna because I'm going to. So I do think that like within the school itself, it did have some barriers.
Sure.
With that.
And what do you think about that?
I also agree within the curriculum because there's no history of us in there, and which is fine because we're in the United States. But the United States has also been built by many of us. So then, when we don't speak about that, that's excluding people or making them feel that they're less than just because they're not. It's not the United States, but the United States was built by all these immigrants. So excluding it. It's wrong, and then excluding also the food. Now it got much better, but I'm talking about when they were younger, excluding the food, and even excluding the fact that why you can't speak Spanish, like even giving them the reasons why, and just shutting them down, like if the language is less than. I think that was wrong because when you're a child, you're not understanding. But if someone explains to you why, then you know that it's not because you have to be ashamed of your language, but because the teacher is not understanding what they're saying.
Sure.
So the way they treated people, it was wrong. And then we didn't have a lot of, and maybe they were, I don't know, but I didn't see it. We didn't have a lot of Hispanics teachers. We didn't have a lot of people that would even talk about our culture or even feel proud of our culture or even defend our culture. We didn't have that. So I feel that back then you needed it to be just like New Bedford, and you couldn't be yourself. You just needed it to fit in with what New Bedford could have give you, or their culture, which is, there's nothing wrong with it, but you also want to feel included.
And so there are several countries, either just like a little bit south of America or, being represented from Central America or South America in New Bedford, everywhere from Guatemala to El Salvador to everywhere. I mean, we have a lot of representation, very diverse. Do you feel like Americans who don't know much about Hispanic culture lump everyone together who's not American, and maybe share your thoughts on that? We can start with you.
Yes. For example, they might say, "All Mexicans." So they put you in this, all Mexicans, or do you speak Mexican?
That's terrible.
And so that says a lot.
Yes,
that says
does.
a lot of, not knowing. That's a small thing, but that says a lot of not knowing. And and which there's a lot to educate,
Yeah.
community on it, because first of all, we don't speak Mexican, or we don't speak Guatemalan, we speak Spanish, and we all speak in different, and we use different words,
Yeah.
but we all speak Spanish, and we're not all Mexicans, just exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
There's Guatemalans, Salvadorians, Hondurans,
Yes.
all Central American. So I did found that they would put us in this bucket, and call us in one thing, which still, if we're Mexicans, I'm still proud of it, because my daughter is half Mexican,
Yeah.
but I'm not Mexican.
Yeah.
I'm Guatemalan, and so I did found that. So.
And maybe if people could be a little bit more open-minded to learn about these different cultures, then they wouldn't come across as being so ignorant and uninformed.
Yeah.
What has been your experience with that, in having these different identities and being proud of, that you're Mexican and Guatemalan and American, but that there's so many other groups out there and ethnicities? Have you been grouped into groups you don't belong to?
So, like my mom has mentioned about the comment of people say, "Do you speak Mexican?"
Yeah.
I have gone a lot on that, especially when they find out that I am half Mexican. They go, "Oh, so you speak Mexican?" I'm like, "I don't know what that is, but I speak Spanish."
Yeah.
I'm like, "I do speak Spanish, but I do not speak Mexican." So it's going into that, as well as like, assuming that I'm not born here. When I tell them where I'm from, they go, "Oh, so how long have you been here?" I'm like, "No, I was born here. I'm just, allowing you to know that I am Mexican and Guatemalan."
Yeah.
And so it's like even that, people assuming that, if you're from, let's say, El Salvador, if you just say that, that's your culture, they don't think that you're born here. And maybe it's because, some people lose their culture. Once you're born here, a lot of people lose that culture of where their grandparents came from.
Sure.
If it's from Portugal, from England, it doesn't matter, but that's still your roots, and that's still part of you. And a lot of people tend to forget that. So when they meet someone like me who does not forget that, it's always with, well, how long have you been here?
Sure.
Or just assuming because I have, especially when I was younger, I had long black hair, my skin was brown, just assuming that I was not born here. Like,
There's a lot of assumptions.
It's assuming that, and like
Yeah.
how you said, it's, when people don't educate themselves on the culture, they lose that information and then just come with this, that saying, ignorant is bliss.
In stereotypes and generalizations. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, could you tell us a little bit about Guatemala, and do you still have family there?
Yes. So everyone was. I'm from the city. I'm from the capital of Guatemala, but I was. It's called like mestiza, someone that is half indigenous and half like Spaniard
Okay,
roots.
sure.
So then you become a mestiza, and that's who I am.
Okay.
And that's who I am. And I was born in the capital, and I was there until until I was 8 years old. So I remember just the places where I lived, and because I didn't go out that much. So I remember El Mercado, which is kind of like the flea market here, and I remember the schools, and I remember being able to play outside, and being able to play under the rain, and being able to and being able to be in the streets feeling so safe, even though it seems like it's not, but when you're a child, you don't know the difficulties that the family are going through.
Yeah.
You think everything is fine, but I felt safe. Like I felt that I was in a nice place, that I was in a good place, and I was being taken care of by my mom, my grandmother, and my aunt, who was the three women who raised me.
Sure.
Yes, but that's pretty much. And I do remember whenever it was La Semana Santa, which means La Semana Santa, it's the Holy Week.
The Holy Week.
Yeah. Like the Holy Week, La Semana Santa, and the traditions and everything that we used to do. So I even though I was there not too long, I do have all those things in my heart, and they never leave. And Right now, I do have two brothers in Guatemala, and everyone else is here.
Oh, okay. Do they have plans of coming, or are they comfortable in Guatemala? They plan to stay there.
So one of my brothers just left because of this administration.
Yeah.
And he decided that he didn't want to live in fear.
Yeah.
And so he just left.
Okay.
And but so they're not thinking of coming here.
Yeah.
It's okay, you know. So.
And so we have a few minutes left in part one, and we have a lot more to talk about in part two. But if you could maybe shed some light on some of the reasons for why people come to America, okay? And maybe if you still know of anything about what's going on in Guatemala, and just in these different countries, I know every country has their own situation, and so they have their own reasons, but maybe you can talk a little bit about Guatemala and that there are a decent amount of Guatemalans now here in New Bedford, which is great, in that you have a community, but does it have, is it more to do with what's going on in Guatemala, or is it just because America has opportunities? Talk about that.
Yeah, so for example, my mom came here because as a woman, she wasn't treated correctly, and she needed to be in another place so that she can raise her children. She had 4 at that time, and she was looking for this. She knew that in Guatemala we were not going to have opportunities. We were not going to be able to do anything with ourselves, even though I had this imagination or imaginary life that it wasn't because my mom was going through a lot, and it came with poverty, it came with abuse, and that she was going through, and so then that's why I came to this country, because my mom was looking for that. And I know a lot of women that, you know, the machismo is still ingrained in many men and women still in our country, and that does not allow the women to progress. And those are one of the reasons why women would make the decision of leaving their home country, because they want something else. They don't want to live under the machismo, under laws that dominate the women. And many women do that, and they cross the border because they don't even want their children to live under that.
Yeah.
And so we have poverty. We have also the system of education. It's not the best. Also, jobs are not always. There's not enough jobs for people. And as I know, after you turn 35, if you don't own anything yet in Guatemala, then you don't have an opportunity to work for someone else, because they don't give you opportunities to work.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. So then people have to move from country to country, and so and there's also violence, and that's something that I do remember in Guatemala. We did have violence. Okay. And it just it gets worse and worse and worse. So, you know, with poverty comes violence, and it's all this whole system that it's made to put you to fail. And we also have corporations that also go to like Guatemala, and they start their own business, and they don't pay taxes. They don't do. And so then that's not good for the financial status for even for Guatemala.
It's not helping the people.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. When we have corporations from this country to go to our country, it doesn't help. It doesn't help the community. So all those things make people or push people to have to immigrate to this country. So this country also in fault for that immigration part.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
And so that really wraps up part one. We have a lot more to talk about in part two, like your organization that you started, and you could explain that and tell the people what it is and what your mission is. And then you could give a little bit about your perspective on the group that you've joined and what your mission is as well. Yep. So we have a lot more to talk about. Thank you so much for being here and talking and opening up about your stories. And thank you so much for watching, everyone. And watch us in part 2 with Alicia and Maria, where we continue this conversation. Peace. I'm running,